So he goes there to China, and he says something which is far more important, that we do not want to be vassals of the United States, which is astonishing that, is there any European who claims we should be vassals of the United States? And yet he says that, and he's being lambasted across Europe. It just goes to show the state of affairs of the European Union. But he says something else which was very important. And it shouldn't be controversial, but it is controversial. And that is a sign of the terrible state of our political debates here in Europe. He said, and I quote from The Guardian, "France is for the status quo in Taiwan and a peaceful resolution to the situation." Now, that shouldn't be at all controversial. Because what is the status quo of Taiwan? Taiwan is not Ukraine. Let's be clear about that. Taiwan is part of China. Historically, imagine if the Greek Civil War ended up with the communists winning the war in Athens and the right wing going to Crete and setting up a different state, right-wing state, calling it the Republic of Greece, whereas the communists had Athens and they called it, the People's Republic of Greece. Nobody can actually claim that Crete is not part of the, of the Greek realm. There's just a split, an ideological split, two different administrations. It's the same language, the same ethnicity, it's the same everything. And indeed, 50% of the people of Taiwan are voting for the Kuomintang party, which believes that Taiwan is the real China and that they should take over the rest of China, which was rightly theirs. But they do believe it's one country, they don't want independence. So for, that is the position of the United Nations. So you have the president of France going to Beijing and effectively confirming that the position of the United Nations should be the position of France and Europe. And he's immediately taken to the cleaners for not supporting what? The independence of Taiwan. But the Americans themselves have not recognized Taiwan as independent. But they demand, listen to this, I'll say this once more. The United States government is not recognizing the independence of Taiwan. But the moment the president of France says that there is no issue about the question about recognizing the independence of Taiwan, suddenly he's taken to the cleaners. Because the United States, Washington, expects of European leaders these days to behave in ways that are functional to the policies of the United States without even having the right to adopt the official position of the United States if the official position of the United States is not in sync with that of the CIA, the Pentagon, the military-industrial complex. So it's not that the European Union is a vassal of the United States. It's worse than a vassal. Because the vassals under feudalism, lest we forget, had a degree of autonomy. Remember what the vassals were. The vassals were proto-capitalists, who would lease land from the feudal lord. The feudal lord had massive authority over them, but they would lease land and do little capitalist things with it, get the peasants to produce for them. They would collect the harvest. They would pay rent, ground rent to the feudal lord. They would have a degree of autonomy. That's what the vassals were. Europe doesn't have that anymore. It is the euro crisis, the debt crisis, the banking crisis, the fact that the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, had to save the German and the French banks back in 2009, 2010, 2011. The fact that the Europeans have not managed to take advantage of the euro crisis, of the pandemic, and so on, in order to create something resembling a fiscal union, a political union, a democratic union. These are all the reasons why we are worse than merely vassals. Worse than mere vassals.